Hello student, myself Dr. Sheke Pratima, Ahmednagar Jilla Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samajal, New Arts, Commerce and Science College, Ahmednagar. Demand analysis is the third chapter as per your 12th standard economics subject syllabus. In this video, we just discussed the last point in this chapter, the variation in demand and changes in demand. In this video, we just discussed what is the meaning of the variation in demand and what is the meaning of the changes in demand. But we know in the last few videos we discussed what is the meaning of demand, then types of demand, concepts of demand, factors which is affect the demand, otherwise the factors influencing the demand, and the most important is the law of demand. But if you know the factors affecting demand, the price is the most important factor which is directly affected by demand. But other factors is also important. Other factor means like a population, income, taste and habits are also affected the demand. Means price as well as the other factors will influence the demand. We know the last few videos we already discussed these all points like the concept of demand, definition of demand. On that time we know what is the importance about the price on that concept, means the law of demand. The price is the single one factor which is explain the relationship between the price and demand, which is explain what is the condition about the demand, where the price will rise and what is the impact about the demand. And most important thing is if it is the rises, so that time demand will falls, and if it is falls, so that time demand will rise. So there is the inverse relationship between the price and demand. But in this point we just discussed the price and other factors. If we consider the price, it change the demand, so other factors also change the demand. Means if your population is change, it is increase or decrease, so that time demand will increase and decrease. If your income is increase, so that time you increase your demand. Means you never discuss the price about that commodity. We never focus the price. What is the price about that commodity? It is a high or low. Because your income is increased, so that time your the taste and habits is also changed. So that's why the price and other factors also affect the demand. In the last few videos we discussed these all points, the factors which is the affecting the demand. So we just discussed what is the effect of price and what is the effect of other factors in the demand. So in this video we have discussed the two parts. The first is the variation in demand and second is the changes in demand. See on your screen, I just mentioned these all points. The variation in demand, there are two types. The first is the expansion of demand and second is the contraction of demand. So the expansion of demand means what? We expand that demand. Means demand will increase, otherwise it's a rise. Then second is the contraction of demand. Means demand will fall. So which factor, which is the effect? So that's why the demand will expand and the demand is a contract. So why? So these all points we have discussed in the one concept that is called as the variation in demand. And the next is the changes in demand. There are also two types. First is the increase in demand and second is the decrease in demand. So the increase in demand means what? Which factor will affect the demand and why the demand will rise? And which factor will affect the demand and why the demand will decrease? So these all things we have discussed in the one concept, otherwise the one type, that is called as the changes in demand. So the next point we just discussed the main topic, the variation in demand. So before the few lecture is most important, otherwise the few video is most important because we never completed the all the points like variation in demand and changes in demand in one video. So today, otherwise in this video we just discussed only the variation in demand. Okay, there are two types. So the variation demand means what? There are many factors that determine the demand. One of the most important factor is the price. So the variation in demand means when demand changes due to change in price, it is known as variation in demand. And other factors, we know the other factors remains the constant. If it is there are two types, but the main thing is The variation in demand means what? The single price will change, but the other factor is constant, so that is called as the variation in demand. Means the means price will rise or falls. So that's why the demand is change. But we have considered the other factors remain constant. So in the variation in demand, there are two types. The first is the expansion or the extension of demand, and second is the contraction of demand. So the first is the expansion of demand. We know the expand means what? We have the increase that demand, we have rise that demand. So the fall in price when more of a commodity is bought. Other factors like taste, income of the consumer, size of population, etc. remain unchanged. So that is the definition of the expansion of demand. Means what? The price it is fall, but other factor is constant. So that's why the demand will rise. So that is called as the expansion of demand. Prices fall, other factors like taste, income, size of population is constant. So that is called as the expansion of demand. Means on that time we increase, otherwise we rise, otherwise we expand our demand. Because due to fall in price means the this situation we already discussed in the last few videos, otherwise the last few concepts like a law of demand. On that time we also discussed what is the impact about that the price on the demand. But in this concept we admire that the price is the single one factor which is the affect the demand and fall in price. So the more of a commodity is bought means the consumers will the collect, otherwise the purchase the extra units of that quantity. Why? Because the price will falls. But the other factor is constant. Means if you are, we admire that the income, if your income is change, it is increases, so that time we purchase the extra units of a commodity. But in this case we have assumed the other factors is constant, but only price will fall, so that time demand will rise. So that is called as the expansion of demand. Then we just discussed the graphical representation of the expansion of demand. We know we have discussed what is the slope about the demand curve. Okay, or you have to better know the left to right downward curve is the demand curve. So in your screen, I just mentioned the expansion of demand curve. See, the x-axis measures the quantity of a commodity, y-axis measures the price in rupees. Okay, means quantity of a commodity in kilograms and price in rupees. Y-axis measures the price in rupees. So the first point is most important. Price will rise, OP. On that time, demand is only OQ, but price falls, OP to OP1. So that time demand will rise, OQ to OQ1. So the A to B, the slope will expand, means the demand curve moves in downward on the same demand curve from the point A to point B. It's indicate that the expansion of demand means what? The demand curve slope is always left to right downward. But why? Because the price will fall, so that time demand will rise. It is called as the expansion of demand. This condition will explain the expansion of demand. So same things we have discussed in the next point. It is the second type of the variation in demand, like a contraction of demand. See, the contraction of demand, it refers to fall in demand due to a rise in price. Means it's an inverse relationship. This part will explain. The first is if price will fall, so that time demand will rise. That is called as the expansion of demand, other factors remaining constant. But the contraction of demand, the demand refers to a fall in demand. Means we know the fall in demand due to rise in price. Contraction of demand refers to fall in demand due to the rise in price. Means if your price will rise, so that time demand will fall. So other factors like the constant, means it's the opposite position to the expansion of demand. Means fall in price, the rise in demand, other factors remaining constant, that is called as the contraction of demand. So on that time we have discussed the one more thing, this situation we already discussed in the law of demand. But the main thing is where the demand will rise and where this price will fall. These all things we have discussed in these two types, that is called as the variation in demand. Means the variation in demand, there are two types, expansion of demand and second is the contraction of demand. So the next point means it is related to the graphical representation. We just discussed the graphical graph related to the contraction of demand. Same things. The demand curve slope is always left to right downward. But the main thing is this graph will shows that the demand curve is left to right downward, but upward movement on the same demand curve. See, the main thing is if the price will fall, so that time your demand will rise. But in the contraction of demand, we just discussed the fall in demand due to a rise in price. Means if your price will rise, so that time you never purchase those units of extra units of that commodity. Other factors like income and consumers, the income of the consumer, then the population, then the taste and habits, all things, it's a constant. So the demand curve moves in the upward direction on the same demand curve. And the direction, it is the direction is change. It shows the A point, B to A point. See now, the first price is OP, it's the lowest price. On that time, demand will rise OQ. See, the OQ, it's a highest demand, and the price will rise OP to OP1. So that time the price will rise OP to OP1, so that time the demand will falls OQ to OQ2. So that is called as the contraction of demand, means demand will fall. So demand curve moves in the upward direction on the same demand curve. A, B to A, these 2 points will explain the condition, means the B to point A shows the contraction of demand. So this is the contraction of demand. So you have to remember that what is the difference between the expansion of demand and contraction of demand. Just we have to review that these all points. Okay, the first is the expansion of demand. What is the condition about the expansion of demand? We know the expansion of demand means the rise in quantity demanded due to fall in price, other factors remaining constant. Means what? The price, we have to consider that the price will rise, so that time demand will fall, and if price will fall, so that time demand will rise. So this condition will explain the price is the single one factor which is the affect the demand. So the expansion of demand means the rise in quantity demanded due to fall in price, means the expansion of demand, the price will fall, so demand will rise, other factors remaining constant, so that is called as the expansion of demand. And the contraction of demand, we have discussed that the contraction of demand refers to fall in demand due to the rise in price, means price will rise, so demand will fall, other factors remaining constant, that is called as the contraction of demand. So that is the difference between the expansion of demand and contraction of demand. But the common and most important thing is the variation in demand. The price, it is always change. The single factor price, it's a change, but other factors is constant, so that is called as the variation in demand. So in this video, we just discussed the 1 point, the variation in demand. There are 2 types, the expansion of demand and contraction of demand. I think all students, I will request to all students, please, first of all, you have to discuss always the law of demand. You have to remember the factors affecting demand. So that's why you have to better understood the variation in demand, and the next is the changes in demand. Okay. So this video will explain only the 1 point, the variation in demand. So the next video we have discussed the changes in demand. These all points is the last point in your 3rd chapter, demand analysis. Okay. So goodbye everybody. Stay home, stay safe. Bye everybody.